Hi, Travis with Splunk here. Recently, I was asked about getting data in via PowerShell scripts for Windows devices. Now, I've covered something similar, getting data in scripted inputs with my net SNMP data on a Linux device. And while I was going through, creating the scripts, getting the data in, I decided I would create another video because I thought this would be helpful. What I've done, I'm going to pull up the documentation first here and go over where you can find more information. And then I will go in and start talking about what I did to get data in via PowerShell script. So here you can see the documentation, the requirements. There's a lot of good information in here. I do recommend going in, and I will provide the links for this documentation and using our documentation. But there's a lot of good information in here about configuration, examples, and whatnot. Now, another thing that I will recommend when you are looking to bring in data from Windows devices or even the Unix, Linux devices is using our technology add-ons. I've already got the documentation pulled up for the Splunk add-on for Microsoft Windows. This is something that our Splunk teams really put a lot of thought into, and it provides a way to bring this data in what we call Common Information Model, SIM compliant. And being CIM compliant helps when you want to send that data not only to Splunk Core, but if you are a user of the premium products like IT Service Intelligence or Enterprise Security, the data is already brought in a way that it is usable with those premium products. And you can go through the different source types for the add-on, release notes, and more information in here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to the Config Explorer in my Splunk environment and show you the Windows TA that I deploy. So here I'm going to go up to Config Explorer, and then I have the Windows TA loaded in my deployment server. If you haven't seen the video, I've already went over how I deploy and use a deployment server to push out the TAs for Nix and Windows. I do actually just push out the Splunk TA for Windows by itself, and then any kind of customization that I want to do, if I back up one folder, you can see I have a Windows inputs and I even have a Windows outputs. So I put all of the data I want to send from my Windows devices inside of Win_inputs, and where I want to send it, I put it in Win outputs. You can decide how you want to organize the deployment server and pushing out this, these different apps in your environment. But let me go back to the Windows TA, and then I'm going to go into local, and I'll show you. I don't have anything in there. Let me close that out. Just app.conf. And then I'm going to back up and go to the default folder. So the default folder gives you a lot of good information that you can use. So if I click on inputs.conf, I can see the default, and all of this should be disabled by default, but you can come and scroll down and look at OS logs. Here's application security and system, and other different ways or different data that you can bring in. I'm going to do a search in here and say PS1 and find. You click this down arrow here and find PS1 files or PowerShell scripts. So here I can see, two different examples of how the Splunk TA has been built to help you bring in data here for, what is it? Active Directory. Now, what I did, I didn't enable one of these. I created one from scratch. I actually was looking, I had this brought up to me, many years ago. I had to find a file on a box on every Windows computer that was in my environment that I was supporting. Back then, I think I did it through a batch, another script. I thought, can I do this with a PowerShell? Now, if you're not great at creating PowerShell scripts, go use something like ChatGPT. Say, hey, how can I create a script to do this, or a PowerShell script to do this? Or, go and get your favorite search engine and look for other examples. So here I did use this example And then I went and created a PowerShell script. So let me go to my Notepad++. And this is the PowerShell script that I created. Now, before I put it in Splunk, I'm using a Windows 11 professional installation here on this desktop. I wanted to see if it runs before I, took the effort and tried to get it to run inside of Splunk. So let me actually move. I'm going to go find that file. So I'll go to my Windows folder here. And then I've got the script here. I'm going to I'll just copy it. Control C. And I'm going to go put it in Windows inputs. And then I'm going to put it in local. Actually, I'll put it in bin folder. Now, what you're seeing here is locally on my computer. I'm not in the deployment server at this time. So I do have, if I were to show you the path, this is C, program files, Splunk forwarder, /etc, apps, Windows inputs. This is what I'm pushing out, so I can back up to apps. And you can see I have that outputs and Windows inputs. I have a TA, a stream. So these are all the different apps that I'm pushing out to any device that logs on to this network and is a Windows device. So I'm not even going to, I do recommend, if you are testing out new ways of getting data in, don't just blanket push something out. Maybe grab one box and go on there and make sure it works, and then update your deployment server. So Windows inputs, yeah, bin, I've got it sitting there, because you may find out you'll need to make some adjustments, which that's what happened with me. I'm going to jump over to find my, this is it, my PowerShell screen. And if I do an ls there, you can see that find calc. I'm going to do find calc and try to run it. And this is the problem I noticed when I first tried to run this script. Execution policy. So if I do something like get execution policy, it's restricted. So yeah, could I go into the script and probably build something inside of that script? Sure, but the Windows TA already had something in place. So I went back to the TA and started digging there. Let's do that now. Let me go back to, I'll go to Splunk Web. And then from there, I'm going to go and look at the Windows TA that's on my deployment server. I could have went into, and close this out. I could have went ahead and went into my local folder, but I'll do it from the deployment server here. And let's go into bin. Actually, wait a minute. Backup default inputs.conf. If I come down here and go back to searching, so that's what I'm going to do. Control F. PS1 and find those examples. I noticed something when I was looking at these examples was .bin, run PowerShell, .cmd, and then the script name. So .bin, that's inside of the TA, the Windows TA for Windows. Windows TA for Windows. But a Splunk TA for Windows. Let me go up a folder here. And then I went too far. Mouse has been double clicking lately. I may have to either clean it or get a new one. But here, if I look in the bin folder, I found this run PowerShell command. So let's open that up. And what it's doing here, it's actually setting what the Splunk app is, which is Splunk TA for Windows. And then it says here, run PowerShell, then execution policy remote signed. And I need to roll over, remote sign, and then the command. And then Splunk home, that's the apps where it sets the, go back over here, where it sets that Splunk app, then bin, PowerShell, and 1%, which is the name. So if I go back to my inputs.conf file, we can look at, I'm going to scroll up here so it's not as confusing. I'm going to close this out. We can look here at DNS zone info, which if I go into PowerShell here, there should be DNS zone info. So that's the name of the script. And then the PowerShell run PowerShell command. So it grabs the name of this script and we'll plug it in where it says %1, and then Splunk Home, it knows where you've installed Splunk, and then it needs to have where the where is the location of these files. So Splunk app. We can either go and modify the Splunk TA windows, put our script inside of this PowerShell folder, or I can move that run PowerShell command. I can make a copy of this and then make a copy of PowerShell, and I think that's what I'm going to do. So let's go back to my Splunk folder here. There we go. And if you notice, I put it, the calc dot, the find calc.ps1 inside of a folder here. To make it kind of go more with the Splunk TA, I will actually just go to apps, and then I'm going to go into the TA in the bin folder. I'm going to copy control, and I'm going to copy these two pieces right here. Control C, or if you want, just right click copy, however you want to do it. I'm going to go back to apps. I'm going to go back to my Windows inputs. Could I go ahead and hard code all of that? Sure. But if I want to make multiple scripts, you decide. I'm just showing you one way. You may have come up with a better idea than me. I'm actually going to Control V, paste. There's those two pieces. I'm going to move this into there. So if I go into PowerShell, I have all the other scripts plus find calc.ps1. I can leave these scripts. I'm going to have them twice. I can leave these scripts. I can remove these scripts. I could create another app just for PowerShell scripts. Once again, figure out what makes sense in your office, your environment. I'm just going to delete everything for right now to kind of clean it up. So for the video, and I'm going to go back up to my bin folder, because if I actually open this up, and I'll open it up in Notepad++, let me jump over there for you and look at it. It will actually go into the Splunk TA windows. So it's going to try to, Splunk Home and Splunk TA windows. So what I will need to do is actually, since this is my local app that I'm pushing with my configuration, and I call it win_inputs, I'm now going to point everything into my local folder that I'm pushing out. Now I could leave it alone and put everything in that Windows TA, but I'm trying to keep that as stock as possible, not make any changes in there, and make all the changes in my own app. So now it's going to, and I'm going to hit the save button here. I'll just leave it open. So what it's going to do is go in, run the execution policy, remote sign, run the command in Splunk Home, which will be C program files, Splunk forwarder, etc apps. It should replace this with a win_inputs, and then go find my find calc.exe. Next, I need to update my inputs.conf file, which I have what I'm going to use in there already. I've went ahead and created an index called PowerShell, which I'll show you here in a second if you really want to see it. But I'm basically going to modify the inputs.conf file locally on this box with this right here. Whoops. Control A, Control C. Let's go back over to my Windows folder. And then I'm going to go back up here, and I'm going to do the local. We never edit anything in a default folder. I've already got an inputs.conf file there. I'm going to open that up in Notepad++. Go back over to, not that one, but Notepad++. And let's scroll down, and at the bottom, you can leave it at the top. You decide. I will enter that in. And I do like to give it a little bit of description, comment it out, what's going on. All right. Now, false. In the other examples, he'll use zeros and ones. I was just showing that you can use false or either 0. So here it will use my local Windows inputs, go in, find PowerShell CMD, find the find underscore calc.ps1, say that 5 times really fast, and then run this and bring the information into Splunk. So let's go ahead and save this, and I will just go ahead and leave that up there. We are going to now jump back over to the Windows folder. This file should have been updated. I can look at my timestamp. Yes. I'm going to now jump over to this folder here. And what I'm going to do is restart the Splunk Universal Forwarder. So, make sure I'm clicked in the right screen here. Do opt. Okay. I got too used to doing Unix commands, so C, program files, Splunk, then I'm going to do a Splunk restart, and of course not. So we're just going to back up. Not sure, I must have had a typo or something in the other thing, or maybe that's one of those PowerShell things for PowerShell things that I don't know about. All right, so my universal forwarder has been restarted on the box that I've been working on. Like I said, I'm not touching the deployment server yet. Once I get this all figured out, I could then go update my deployment server to match what I've done here. Let's jump over to my Splunk web. And then let's go, I'm going to go to home here. And I'll show you that if I go to settings and then indexes, here you will see, and I can filter and type in the word PowerShell. I haven't sent any data in there yet, but I do have one event already. So if I go back to apps, let's just go into search and reporting. And if I do index equals PowerShell, I should see, and I'll do the last 15 minutes. I should see an event. And there we go. I can see that calc.exe was found in system32, syswow, and a couple other folders. Huh, look at that. So this is where you could use something, and I've done this, like I said, in an environment where I was asked to look for a file across all the Windows servers. So I used calc.exe as kind of my control, my base, saying every computer should have this. And I ran it across all of my Windows devices and made sure that calc.exe was found. Right here I can do something like, stats count by host, and see how many hosts come up for this example. If I know all the hosts or how many hosts I have, I can list it out. I mean, that's something you can play with when you are building your own search. Look at the raw data, and let's take a look at the raw data. Do I have anything over here? I don't really have too many interesting fields over here. So this is where I could start building, open this up, do event actions, extract fields. I could, because I did define, I believe it was I did define source type find underscore calc. I could build out, regular expression next. Maybe I need to look at separating the fields and whatnot. Program. I don't know how this will look once I do this, or which ones it'll match. Maybe it'll just match on one. Maybe I need to look into my PowerShell script to get it to break up each one of those fields. This is all things that you can work on when you are building this out. But here I could save this and get the program name and say calc.exe. I could maybe, highlight, see Windows and get the folder location. And that's where it might be better to figure out how to get it to separate, line break on the different things that it finds to make it easier for you to ingest it. Or you can leave it like this and maybe it's a one-off thing that you have to do. Now I was about ready to close out the video and I thought, wait a minute, let me show you how you can see a little bit more. So if I even run this and see if we got any more events in there. Yeah, I got 2. So I think it's like every 5 minutes this is going to run. But anyway, if you ever want to see if the script is running and you have admin access into the environment, I'm going to go underscore internal. And then I'm going to say find calc ps1. I may have to open up this search to 60 minutes. Nope, it's right there. So you can actually come in here and see that new scheduled exec process. So here is a script on the host, which is my desktop, and then you can see the location, and that's where I was talking about the you've got to specify that when inputs inside of, go back to Notepad. I still have it open over there. Yes, run PowerShell command. So when you set that Splunk app, I had to do this. Now, could I have, maybe just manually wrote this out? Do I need this run PowerShell command? Maybe not. But I'll let you decide what to do. You may come up with a better idea than I have here, but this is just one way, probably many ways that you can get the same thing done. So now I'm going to end the video with, I hope you've enjoyed this. Hope it's been helpful. And as always, happy spelunking.